Law remains to be one of the most popular options for students around the world. Some choose to study it straight after class 12, while others choose to get their undergraduate degree and then take it up full-time. Either way, the opportunities and possibilities on the road ahead are endless. On the show today, we're going to be covering 5 different practice areas of law, and we spoke to the lawyers to shed some light on the profession and give you the heads up on what it takes to be a lawyer in India.
Law practice is not a bed of roses. It's either all bed and no roses or all roses and no bed.
Yes, if you are good at what you do and that applies across the board, you will make money. But don't make that the motivation.
First up is a field of law that all law students think of practicing at least once. And that's because they believe it's the field of law in which you earn the most money. But is that true? There's a lot to corporate law that you did not know. Take a look. Big companies, big names, big cases, and big bucks. This is the corporate world in India. Since India was liberalized in 1991, the number of companies and corporates accelerated at a super fast rate, developing the country with its products and services and opening up the powerful field of corporate law in India. As a profession, corporate law is seen as one of the most hardcore and ruthless professions, one that forms companies, takes down the big names, and contributes to the ever-expanding field of corporates in India. So what is corporate law? Is it truly as powerful and competitive as they say it is?
Corporate law is about every field of law dealing with a company, starting with incorporation of the company, what business they want to do, where do they set up their offices, do they set up factories, who are their customers, who are their vendors. Everywhere there are documents involved. So contracts involved. So all these put together is called corporate law. Basically everything to deal with a company is called corporate law.
Corporate law is a vast field of law, one that includes labor law as much as it includes environmental law. All aspects and divisions of big companies need corporate lawyers to not only draft a contract that will help them in the time of need, but also guide the company's policies, actions, and behaviors. To be a successful corporate lawyer, one that influences the economy and nature of corporations in the country, one needs to be
more than an academically bright student, you also need to be a very solid in your IQ, in your ability to think beyond what normal people can think. So the best thing I like about this profession is that there is enormous scope for learning.
As India powers through on the development front, there's a type of law that helps govern the rules of infrastructure and project finance, and it proves to be a field of law that holds great promise for the future. India is a fast developing country, racing ahead on all fronts. A crucial player in development projects is a project finance and infrastructure lawyer. A project finance and infrastructure lawyer works on the development, acquisition, and financing of infrastructure projects. What this means is that whenever there's a project concerning the building of roads, airports, power projects, and metro station projects, to name a few, a project finance and infrastructure lawyer is called in. His job is to ensure that the legal documentation concerning bidding of a project or financing a project is intact. He works with financial institutions, project sponsors, investors, contractors, developers, and governments through the course of the project. Since these projects are large transactions that almost always are larger than 500 crore, the lawyer's job is to ensure that the risk is minimized. He must make sure that the legal documentation ensures that the project funds itself, and if a project is delayed or gets interrupted for some unforeseen reason, everyone's rights are protected.
The fun thing is probably you see yourself being part of development, because all of these sectors are where you see development happening or where India needs development. So be it roads, be it railways, be it highways, be it airports, be it metro projects, power, this is sectors where, these are the development areas. This is where development happens. And when you see some of these things happening, you feel that you're part of development.
Since infrastructure projects take a while to complete, a project finance and infrastructure lawyer will most definitely find himself working on a project for a long time, interacting with corporations, banks, and financial institutions throughout. But the benefits of this practice area are unparalleled.
So the most memorable I would describe in this sector was I was doing the privatization of the Delhi-Bombay airports, and that was probably the most memorable. Not for any other reason, because you don't get to see a power project financing or an oil and gas project by your own eyes, but you can see an airport. You visit an airport, you can see it, and project financing is something which takes a very long time to fructify. Unlike an M&A transaction where it happens in 6 months, a project finance transaction takes usually around 2 to 3 years to do, and then the project takes time to build, etc. So the Delhi-Bombay airport privatization was a very big transaction by its very nature, very complicated, and you get to see the fruits of that. You see a functioning airport and you feel proud of the fact that you've been involved in something like that.
We're now in conversation with Mr. Shroff, a man who clearly needs no introduction. Why do you think law still remains one of the most popular options for students? What is it that makes students get attracted towards law?
I think law is a very, very important profession when you look at the array of professions. For the simple reason, law has elements, somebody may be passionate about human rights, elements of, therefore criminal law, the ability to, pull up, satisfy the fundamental rights of humanity. So that's the passion element from a different perspective. Then law and commerce, the whole business of, the community depends on good legal advice. Whether you're setting up an organization, creating a company, creating a partnership, it has to happen with a law backup. You can't make an illegal partnership, or you can't make a non-lawful company. So when you look at orderly creation of an opportunity of, increasing your GDP, or getting an organized public-private partnership, or getting infrastructure working, all of this depends on the law. And all of this is now opened out in many ways, because it's not only government doing this task, private enterprises doing this task. And this will go on increasing in opportunity, because we have to catch up literally 20 years behind China. So I see this opportunity growing and continuously growing, that this will be something which the government will need, which private enterprise will need. Therefore, there is an expansion of capabilities and opportunities in the law, which is not true of all professions.
What sort of strengths should a student have, someone who is considering getting into law, becoming a lawyer? What sort of characteristics should they have?
There's a ever expanding structures which are coming. So that's challenging, and people who have the mental ability of creativity in many ways, plus the ability to be sound on the law and the logic of law, who are willing to study hard, I think it's a good profession, because today it pays commensurate with your effort. And therefore that's what I look at when I see the student community. I think that's what they're aspiring for. They're willing to put in those hours at college so that they come out of college and have a job, which, if you've got an expanding sphere of work in the law, is a profession where suddenly you won't find yourself unemployed. You can always have that, if you're good. I can't say that all lawyers do get a job. It's not my assertion saying that. But if you have put in the hard effort in college and you can continuously to do that, then I think the sky is the limit in the law.
I think something that many students would want to know is, what does Amarchand Mangaldas look for when hiring someone?
I think we made a huge difference to the profession of law for the simple reason that we were willing to take a risk on a young lawyer. If you see what was being done before, before we started hiring out of the law universities, which is now almost 20 plus years, 25 years probably, that law offices were basically, staffed by people who were into the firm maybe 20 years, and they would have reached the size where they stopped growing, or creating fresh talent and giving opportunities to youngsters. So this is what we were the first to do. We took a chance on youngsters who had no experience when we started hiring from college. We do emphasize the all-round culture and nature of a person. because law is just not about textbook study or aggression, or you need to harmonize the ability to work in teams. You must have knowledge, you must be willing to work hard. So we look at a different set of factors. We can't have, for example, an extremely cantankerous or egoistic student. He won't fit, because he might have a tremendous pride in his knowledge of the law, but pride doesn't work in a big team. You have to adjust with others. So there's a lot of the social skills which are needed, whether you're talking to a client or whether you're talking to a team colleague in the firm. You can't have a chip on your shoulders and say, I'm the best. That doesn't work in life. So those are the kind of qualities that we look when we are hiring.
Final question, Mr. Shroff. What would be your advice for those getting into law or pondering a career as a lawyer?
Skill and the ability to generate, innovate are very important in today's world, but that's something which we can train people on. But we can't train people on their nature. It's something which is either there or not there. It's something which is inset over 20 years, 21 years, because of the family, because of the college, because of co-students. So those are important qualities that we look for when we hire people.
Thank you very much for speaking with us, Mr. Shroff. Next up is banking and regulatory law. We met a partner who spoke to us a bit more about what it's like to work with the big names in banking. Got money on your mind? Welcome to the big bad world of banking. Assisting the banks to navigate through the crazy world of money and government compliances is a banking and regulatory lawyer. A banking and regulatory lawyer covers state and federal regulations governing financial institutions. They handle everything from customer disputes and complaints against a bank to litigation between foreign and domestic banks and financial institutions. They provide sound and legal advice to banks on loans and the financing of new ventures. They need to ensure that their negotiation skills are good enough to ensure that their client gets a fair deal in the contract.
I think it's important to have an interest in and understanding of the financial world. You need to be able to understand what banks or financial institutions do, what lending of money means. In terms of soft skills, if you are working in, say for example, a multinational bank, your ability to communicate across geographies becomes very critical, and your ability to help people understand the typical Indian regulatory environment.
While regulating major financial transactions between large companies is one aspect of the job, since there are many rules and regulations regarding how banks operate, the majority of the work of a banking lawyer is to advise banks on regulatory compliance. The laws surrounding common banking products such as loans and accounts are quite complex, and the job of the lawyer is to identify the regulations imposed on banks and rank them in order of the risk associated with non-compliance. He also spends a great deal of time negotiating the contract terms of a loan to ensure that his client gets a fair deal.
A young lawyer should target that they spend the first initial years, I would say 5 years or so, working in a law firm, because I think that's where you get a lot of training, and then evaluate whether you love the practice of law and the various challenges, right? Because one of the things you need to be conscious of is that as a service provider, which is what you do in a private practice, you have less control over your hours, right? So if a client calls you on a Friday evening and say, we need to do a transaction this weekend, you'll need to change your weekend plans. So if you're at a stage of life where that work-life balance is very important for you, let's say you've just had a child and you want to spend time with that person, then I think those things become relevant in making that decision.
We're going to slip into a short break, but don't go away. We have lots more coming right up.